Julia from Bell Direct. Julia, just get your thoughts on the session.
And not a bad session on the Australian share market given the negative leads from Wall Street, where we did see the S&P 500 down by 0.8%. And of course those talks with Greece absolutely falling apart over the weekend. The market seemed to shrug it all off, and in the end we were looking pretty flat, down by just 0.1%. The big change in the market did come from the banks. At one stage down by around about 1%, by the end of the session looking positive. So it does look like that dividend yield of about 5.8% or 7.7% on a fully franked basis. Seeing some bargain hunters coming into the picture there and buying up some of the banking stocks. And that was really what was behind the turnaround. In terms of volumes very light, with it being typical of a Monday session. Lots of news around, but it was really that banking space which was behind the turnaround.
Thoughts on buying the banks at the moment for anyone who maybe doesn't hold them, and I don't know who those people are, but they might exist. I mean, is now a time, these levels, to be buying?
Well, I jumped in today. If we have a look at the banks, usually the month of May does tend to be a negative one for the banks, and from around about the 15th of June, we're around about that, the banks do tend to move up. Remember, Commonwealth Bank does have a dividend to pay in August, so that should be supportive. And while the yield play has been out of favour over the last 2 months, while we have seen bond prices pulling back, it's probably not the start of a longer term trend. We're still probably going to see interest rates around the globe still low for a long period of time, even though we are talking about interest rates in the US maybe rising by a tiny bit in September. So while we are still talking interest rate rises, rates are expected to stay low, and that means the yield trade is still going to be popular. The banks, you know, we've seen Commonwealth Bank last week dipping below that $80 mark. The yields are looking attractive there. And as long as we don't see a housing crash, you know, we should see a pretty stable outcome for the banks. And May does tend to be a very weak month for the banks.
Do you have a preference, Julia, amongst the big four?
Well, at the moment, Commonwealth Bank, only because it's the only one out of the big four banks to be paying that dividend in August, whereas the other three have already paid, so it has an upcoming dividend at the moment. But in terms of pricing, it's NAB that the bargain hunters are going for, NAB, which was the outperformer there. But in terms of stability, in terms of that dividend, Commonwealth Bank with that dividend in August.
Julia, were you buying Metcash today?
No. I guess Metcash, you know, if you want to take a bit of a punt, that's all it is, because it's not investment grade at the moment. It's just too hard in this space. Woolies, Coles, they're the mammoths in this space in terms of supermarket sales. Woolworths, $45 billion. Coles, $35 billion. Compare that with Metcash, which is around the $13 billion mark, not to mention the likes of Aldi and Costco coming in with more competitiveness. So if we have a look at Metcash, yes, the sale today to Burson's, which of course has been doing fantastically well. The stock price up 70% in the past year compared to Metcash, which is down by 60%. Great news for Burson's, which becomes the largest auto parts company in Australia. Great news in terms of scale, in terms of the retail network. So good news for Burson's. In terms of Metcash, yes, it does alleviate some of those balance sheet pressures, but the most material maturity for the debt wasn't until July 2018, so it was a fair bit away. But what's unclear here for an investment is really how they're going to compete against the competitiveness in this space, and to gain greater scale, because Coles and Woolies is really the standouts here.
The other, Julia, one of the other big corporate stories today, the long-awaited, if you like, tie-up, or at least announcement by Foxtel and Ten to take up to 15% stake in Network 10 off the back of a share issuance. Look, your view on the deal?
Look, the two stocks that I do have holdings in and have had announcement today are both Amcom and Ten. Look, Ten share price has been doing pretty well today with that tie-up for Foxtel. Look, there has been a premium in terms of Ten share price because of an expectation of a takeover. That obviously didn't happen, but not a massive share price reaction there. We saw around about a 1 cent movement in terms of the share price compared to Friday. But in terms of Ten, there's a lot of positives and there's a lot of negatives with this stock. The positives, best start to a ratings year since 2012. Their viewership up by 22% in terms of all peoples, and in that 25 to 54 age range up by 25%. On the negative side, we know that there's been a large amount of debt and they've been struggling to cover the interest coverage in terms of cash flow, but of course the deal today is going to alleviate that, and so they're going to be able to pay off some of their debt. And also that deal with MCN means that they're going to have this tie-up with the sales house, which will mean some synergies involved there as well. So altogether, I don't think a huge reaction in terms of 10, and this really is a story about the ratings turnaround, which will be followed by a lag in the revenue turnaround. That's what you're hoping for with 10.
Quickly before we go, Julia, as a shareholder, good outcome for Amcom today?
Amcom shares are absolutely going to soar when they come online. I wasn't even expecting this vote to go
I don't think anyone was.
No, I mean TPG with a 20% stake and they needed 75% to get through. No one really thought that this was going to get through. Amcom is set to soar. Vocus has a takeover offer on the table with 0.4616 shares. Based on where the shares last traded, $2.72 is the offer price. That's a 20% premium to the last traded price. So expect Amcom shares to do well when they come back online.
Great.